Hello everyone and welcome back to a brand new Pokemon TCG video. Today we're going to be taking a look at a deck revolving around the Primal Clash Crawdaunt with the Unruly Claw ability. So this allows us to get rid of an energy card attached to our opponent's active Pokemon through the evolution of our Corphish into the Crawdaunt. So pretty cool Pokemon. Our whole deck is going to be focusing on us repeatedly getting rid of our opponent's energy cards and then hopefully just making life incredibly difficult for our opponent. So we are going to be running some Crawdaunt. We're also going to be running some Pesky Hammer. So we are running a total of 4 copies of the Crushing Hammer. Provided that we flip a heads, we are able to get rid of any energy card attached to one of our opponent's Pokemon, including their bench Pokemon, so definitely a nice card to include. We are running a total of 4 copies of the Crushing Hammer. We're also going to be running a total of 2 copies of the Enhanced Hammer. This is a bit more specific in that we're only able to target our opponent's special energy cards. However, we don't have the flip requirement. So again, another nice card to include. We are running 2 copies of the Enhanced Hammer. And if that really weren't enough, we're also going to be running a single copy of the Zerasic. This also allows us to target any special energy cards, so we can get rid of double colorless energies or anything like that. And we're also on top of that able to target a Pokemon tool card. So that includes any tool cards attached to our opponent's Pokemon and our Pokemon as well. So Zerasic is a nice card, namely speaking, especially for facing a Garbodor type deck, for example, so that we can target that Floatstone or whatever is really attached to it, and then we can continuously use our Crawdaunt's Unruly Claw ability, of course, because we don't want that to get shut down through the usage of our opponent using a Garbodor type deck. So we are running a single copy of the Zerasic, and we are of course going to be running a single copy of the Starling Megaphone as well, again just in case we are facing a Garbodor type deck, and given the fact that we do have a reliance on our Pokemon's special abilities. Now the thing with Starling Megaphone though, that you have to be a little bit reluctant with respects to using it in certain situations, because we are going to be running 2 copies of the Headringer as well. This will allow us to slow down our opponent's EX based decks, and then ideally we can repeatedly pound away at our opponent while they have been slowed down. So of course Starling Megaphone would get rid of those Headringers as well. So in those certain types of situations, the Zerasic may just be the way to go. In other situations, Starling Megaphone may be better just because of the fact that it is an item type card and does not take up our supporter for the turn. So we are running 2 copies of the Headringer as well, guys. Now discussing the 2 main attackers of our deck. Number 1 is going to be the Cobalion EX. We're going to be alternating between using its Righteous Edge and Steel Bullet attack. Really nice thing about Righteous Edge is that it allows us to discard a special energy card attached to our opponent's defending Pokemon into their discard pile, and ideally we can use the Cobalion EX to load up our Drifblim and then repeatedly use the Shadow Steel attack to dish out some devastating amounts of damage, because the Drifblim is able to hit 50 damage times the number of special energy cards in our opponent's discard pile. Not a Pokemon to be underestimated, exceptionally powerful later into the game. So we are running 2 copies of the Drifblim, and just discussing the Cobalion EX's second attack. The Steel Bullet is able to hit for 100 damage. Not exactly the greatest attack, does require 3 energies as well, so it is a little bit energetically expensive. The nice thing to it though is that it's not affected by weakness, resistance, or any other effects on the defending Pokemon. So that includes things such as Safeguard type Pokemon, Pyroars. Cobalion EX is easily able to attack right through those. So pretty nice Pokemon. We are still running 3 copies of him. Steel Bullet could be nice depending on the situation. So of course we'll be alternating between the attacks depending on what we would like to do. So have just discarded that we are running a whole lot of our hammers, the Headringers. So the basic deck premises is relatively self-explanatory. So the other cards that I want to briefly discuss is, number 1, our A-Spec card is going to be the Dowsing Machine. This will of course allow us to reuse our item type cards. Namely speaking, we're probably going to be using them to reuse our hammers all over again, or our Headringers, just to slow down our opponent's deck. Again, our whole deck is just meant to cripple our opponents, and then while we slowly pound away at them, and we are able to dish out those massive knockouts. Well, not exactly massive knockouts, because we're not really able to perform a one-hit knockout, except possibly later on into the game with the Drift Blim. So Dowsing Machine is a nice card, given the fact that the game is probably going to be relatively long and dragged out anyway. So we are running this as our A-Spec card. The other cards that we're running, guys, are pretty self-explanatory. So I've already discussed the hammers. We are running a single copy of the Escape Rope, a Switch card, 3 Ultra Balls, 2 VS Seekers, 2 Colossus, 2 Lysanders, a single Lysander's Trump card, 4 Ends, and 4 Junipers. The Stadium card that we'll be running, guys, will be the Steel Shelter. Mainly, this is a counter Stadium card to cards such as the Verbank City Gym, because again, you'll be encountering a lot of types of decks that really try to repeatedly poison us and things like that. So Steel Shelter is a nice card to include. We are running 2 copies of this in our deck. The muscle bands are relatively straightforward, just to increase the total damage output of our Pokemon, 2 Headringers, and a total of 10 Steel Energy cards. So with that, guys, let's actually see what this deck is capable of. Haven't really tested it all that much, so not really sure if this is the greatest deck. It seems to be performing relatively decently right now, though. Feel like its performance could be improved a little bit, just given the fact that Cobalion EX is not able to hit for enough damage, unfortunately, but he does seem to work incredibly well in combination with the Drift Blim, provided that our opponent is running special energy cards. So the Lysander's Trump card I didn't really talk about much earlier. That's mainly as a sort of recycling mechanism to recycle our hammers back into our deck all over again. So I'm thinking our opponent may be running a Genesect type deck, again, just based on their sleeve. I'm not really sure. I didn't really see what deck they were running. So let's go and actually lay down the Cobalion EX as our active Pokemon. We'll be laying down the Corphish as well. Probably going to be using the Juniper for some new cards in our hand. Hoping that we can draw onto a couple of hammers and things like that, just so that we can ideally slow down our opponent's deck. Okay, so it looks like a Manectric EX is going to be our opponent's active Pokemon. It does have the Steel Resistance, so that could be a little bit of a troubling Pokemon for us to deal with. Unfortunately, we do have the Crawdaunt, but I think using the Juniper would be the wisest choice right now. Anyways, I do want to ideally Headringer our opponent's Manectric EX, so let's see if we are able to get it. Unfortunately not, but we do have 2 more Corphishes, so let's go and lay those down. And unfortunately, we are going to have to end our turn with that. Again, our opponent's resistance may give us a bit of a difficult time. And given the fact that he is running a Manectric EX, I'm not really sure if our opponent is going to be running any special energies. Again, just because Mega Manectric... Oh yeah, so looks like it is going to be a Virizion EX, Genesect EX, Mega Manectric EX type deck. So the opponent's Plasma energies, we will be able to discard them using the Enhanced Hammer. So that shouldn't be too big of an issue. Our opponent is going to use the Ultra Ball. I'm assuming we are going to see... Yeah, so the Genesect EX is going to come out. I mean, you guys have encountered the Virizion EX, Genesect EX decks time and time again, so they're relatively straightforward as to how they work. Again, though, one of the things, though, is that those decks do require a bit of a setup to get going, so, I mean, I think we should have a fairly good chance. I will actually be bringing out one of our Crawdaunts and then getting rid of that, Grass Energy attached to our opponent's Manectric EX, and then I will be using the N for some new cards in our hand. So let's see what we are able to draw into, guys. Looks like our opponent is having a hard time deciding which of our Corphishes he really wanted to attack. So let's actually go and attach a Steel Energy card to our Cobalion EX for the time being. I think I'm actually going to take a risk and use the Crushing Hammer. Hopefully we're able to get the heads, and then I don't have to discard the Energy card and the Enhanced Hammer from our hand. So let's go and see, and unfortunately we are going to get the tails. I do want to get rid of that Grass Energy from our opponent's Manectric EX, so let's actually go and use the Ultra Ball, get rid of the Enhanced Hammer and one of our Steel Energies, bring out the Crawdaunt, and then discard that Energy card. And then I will be using the N for some new cards in our hand. And no Muscle Band just yet. Let's go and lay down the Drifloon as well. I think we will actually be using him later on into the game. I do have another Crawdaunt in our hand, so we'll be able to get rid of any energy card our opponent may attach to his active Manectric EX. So let's go and use Righteous Edge for a mere 10 damage. Unfortunately, again, because of that resistance, but one more energy card, and then our Cobalion EX can start dishing out a little bit more damage. So again, another energy card comes to our opponent's active Manectric EX. We'll be able to discard it again through the to us actually bringing out our Crawdaunt. So I feel like our opponent is going to have a relatively difficult time just really getting his setup going, given the fact that Genesect EX does require a massive 3 energy cards to be able to attack, and that Virizion EX also requires 2 energy cards to also be able to attack. So let's go and bring out the Crawdaunt, get rid of that energy card attached to our opponent's Manectric EX once again, and we'll be attaching a Steel Energy to our Cobalion EX. So now we're able to hit for a relatively decent 100 damage, and I think I may be just using the Colress, so let's actually go and use the Dowsing Machine to get rid of our Lysander and another Steel Energy, grab out the Colress for some new cards in our hand. Hopefully we're able to get some nice cards. Awesome, so we do have the Head Ringer, so I'm going to go right ahead and actually attach that to our opponent's Virizion EX, just so that he can't really use the Energy Acceleration. We also have the Muscle Band, so let's go and attach that to our Cobalion EX. I will be saving this slot open temporarily just for another one of our Cobalion EXs. Again, I haven't seen any special energies just yet, so our opponent may actually not be running any of them, so don't want to be bringing out the Drifloon just yet. So let's go and hit it for 100 damage, and now our Cobalion EX is, sorry, 120 damage. Our Cobalion EX is looking a little bit more menacing. I forgot that Steel Bullet actually avoids resistance as well, so that is quite nice. Luckily for us, we are able to hit those Pokemon for a little bit more damage. So our opponent's Manectric EX is going to have an energy attachment to him. Our opponent's also going to use the Escape Rope, so I think I'm going to bring out the Drifloon, actually the Corphish for the time being, given the fact that he has the smallest retreat cost, just in case our opponent happens to use the N or something like that. For example, each of our other Pokemon have 2 retreat costs, so I feel like Corphish was the wisest choice. We do have the Escape Rope in our hand though, and also a Switch, so shouldn't be too big of an issue for us. And the Mega Manectric EX may just be coming out, so that may give us a little bit of a difficult time. If our opponent's Mega Manectric EX does happen to come out though, our priority is going to be that we really want to be able to get rid of the Grass Energy attached to our opponent's Manectric EX. So yeah, so I definitely need another one of our Crawdaunts, guys, or just something to prevent that Mega Manectric EX from being able to retreat any sorts of discarded energy cards. I mean, Lysander's Trump card could potentially be a good card to use, but then that would still enable our opponent. Okay, so he's actually not going to evolve his Manectric EX into the Mega Manectric EX just yet. And let's see who our opponent is going to target. I will actually be using the Switch, though I want to keep our opponent's Manectric EX as his active Pokemon. I do want to get rid of him. Seems to me like he would be the most threatening Pokemon, so let's actually go and switch into the Cobalion EX for now. And no Ultra Balls in our hand, unfortunately, and we don't have any Skyless that we are running in our deck either, so we'll be attaching a Steel Energy to our Drifloon just for the time being, and then I will be using the Colress. Again, really hoping for something that is able to get rid of that energy card attached to our opponent's Manectric EX. And okay, so we do have the Head Ringer, so that is nice. Luckily we are saved, but let's go and actually use the Crushing Hammer first, hoping for the heads. We're going to get details though, so unfortunately by using the Starling Megaphone, we are going to discard the Head Ringer attached to our opponent's Virizion EX as well. I think that it is worth it though, so let's actually go and use that. Attach the Head Ringer to our opponent's Manectric EX. At the very least, he won't be able to retrieve those discarded energy cards from their discard pile now, and we should be able to get rid of that Manectric EX on our next turn. So let's go and use Steel Bullet, hit for 120 damage, and again, we should be able to get rid of that Manectric EX on our next turn. Our opponent is probably running some energy switches as well, so that Virizion EX may just come out and may be a bit of a difficult Pokemon for us to deal with. So again, I'm not really sure. Our opponent may just evolve his Manectric EX into the Mega Manectric EX and then possibly end their turn. Okay, so it looks like they are going to retreat and then bring out their bench Manectric EX. Okay, and the Colress machine as well. I'm assuming it's going to go to the Virizion EX. Okay, no, so that Colress machine is actually not going to be used to grab onto any of our opponent's plasma energies. Not really sure why our opponent did that. And I think Lysander's Trump card is probably the best card to use right now. None of our opponent's Pokemon can actually knock out our Cobalion EX on our next turn, so let's actually go and use the Lysander's Trump card for now. I think would be a relatively wise choice for us to use. And then let's go right ahead and knock out our opponent's Manectric EX, and then draw onto our first 2 prize cards. Again, not really sure why our opponent actually decided to retreat his Pokemon. We do have an Ultra Ball in our hand as well, so that is nice in case we need to desperately get rid of an energy card attached to any of our opponent's Pokemon. We can use that to easily grab onto one of our Crawdaunts. Again, don't think that our opponent's Verzian EX should be able to attack this turn. And I mean, chances are that it's not going to happen. Our opponent is starting to power up his Genesect EX, and we are going to see the Mega Manectric EX come out as well. So let's go and bring out the Drifblim for the time being. I will be laying down the Cobalion EX as well. I think using the Professor Juniper would be a relatively wise choice from here on out. So let's go and lay down the Steel Shelter for now. Haven't actually seen any stadium cards come out from our opponent just yet, so I don't really think that a Steel Shelter is going to be discarded anyways. Not really useful anyways, but I just decided to lay it down. So let's go and use the Juniper and hope that we get some nice cards. Okay, so we have another Steel Energy, so we'll be able to start loading up our benched Cobalion EX. And then let's go and hit that Verzian EX for 120 damage. And again, the game is looking very much so in our favor. Our opponent is at a relatively massive disadvantage, hasn't been able to draw onto any of their prize cards right now, and I don't foresee our Cobalion EX actually getting knocked out in our turn. Okay, so I actually got rid of one of our escape ropes, so I'm assuming our opponent is going to try and lure out one of our Corefishes, one of our Crawdaunts, and yes, so that Crawdaunt is going to come out. I'm not sure if I'd like to use the N. Let's see what supporter cards we have in our discard pile. So we do have a Juniper. I think, guys, we're actually going to sacrifice our entire hand and use the Juniper, really hoping that we're able to grab onto a card such as our Switch, our Dowsing Machine, and then we're able to attack with our Cobalion EX. So let's go right ahead and use the Juniper, hoping that this is the wiser choice. And no, we're unfortunately not going to get any of the cards that we really needed, but let's go and use the Enhanced Hammer, the Crushing Hammer. Unfortunately, flip the tails. Don't really want to attach an energy card to our Crawdaunt because it needs 2 to actually be able to retreat. So I'm just going to go and attach another Steel Energy to our Cobalion EX for the time being. And unfortunately with that, guys, we are going to have to end our turn. Now, I want to be a little careful with respects to using the VS Seeker. Not really sure if I'm going to want to use our Lysander's Trump card from here on out. So, I mean, it could be relatively safe to actually use it to discard all of our cards in our hand. Our opponent's also going to use the Juniper. Again, I don't really think any of his Pokemon are going to be able to attack just yet. Our opponent's going to Starling Megaphone, the Muscle Band from our Cobalion EX. Luckily, we do have another Muscle Band in our hand, though, that I decided not to lay down on our last turn. Let's see what we have, guys. We have another Juniper in our hand as well. I think I may just use the N this time, so let's go and actually attach another Steel Energy to our Cobalion EX. Not going to lay down the Muscle Band just yet, and then use the N. Colress would certainly have been a much nicer card right now, but again, I'm a little bit reluctant with respects to discarding all of these cards in our hand, and our deck is, we have 18 cards remaining, but again, I don't want it to be a situation where we happen to deck out. So let's go and use the N and see if we grab anything useful. Awesome, looks like we are going to get the Switch this time around, guys. So we'll be bringing out the Cobalion EX with only 60 HP remaining, because don't want our bench Cobalion EX to take any damage just yet. Let's use Steel Bullet, knock out our opponent's Verzian EX, and then draw onto 2 of our prize cards. So provided that our opponent does not end us on our next turn, we should be able to win by Lysandering out our opponent's Mega Manectric EX and then knocking it out using our Cobalion EX. So game should be ours again, provided that our opponent doesn't actually use the N. So as you guys can see, we give our opponent a very, very difficult time. And no, it looks like that N is going to come out. I do have a Lysander in our discard pile though, so that Dowsing Machine is actually going to save us. So I am quite thankful that we decided to include it. Hopefully a Max Potion doesn't come out. That would be the only card that I believe our opponent would now be able to play to actually allow him to survive another turn. Okay, so our opponent's going to use the Switch. Again, though, we are able to win because we do have the dowsing machine in our hand, and we're lucky enough to have one of the Lysanders in our discard pile as well. So let's actually go right ahead, use the dowsing machine, grab onto the Lysander. Thankfully, our steel bullet is able to negate that resistance, and we are going to go on to the victory. So thank you guys very much for watching. I hope you guys did enjoy this video, and if you did, please be sure to hit that like and subscribe button, and I will see you guys next time.